Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and welcome to a new season of Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. Yes, the part of the year where I'm nearly positive that we're starting a new Billboard year, but can't be precisely sure until year-end lists come out surrounding what Billboard ultimately will include as part of 2021. But it certainly feels like a new year. An album bomb from Summer Walker sweeping away a lot of the old lower entries, which will likely be followed in the next couple of weeks by a few other major impacts, and a couple other big new songs breaking through where it's an open question how long any of them will actually stick around. And yet, if we go to our top 10, Adele's Easy On Me remains entrenched at the number 1, with robust strength in every channel and making a headline run for the top radio spot. And right now, I really wouldn't put much money on Stay by Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber holding up much longer at number 2. It's peaked on the radio, it's slipping in other categories. Right now, it's Adele's closest competition, and with what's coming, I don't really have much faith in its staying power. Next up is Industry Baby by Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow at number 3. The radio seems to be leveling off, but streaming will hold solid enough to hold steady, and it was still enough to keep above Bad Habits and Shivers by Ed Sheeran at number 4 and number 5, where the former held on based on radio inertia, but the latter actually has better sales and seems to have a little bit more upward traction. Then we got a new debut at number 6, the collab I'm sure we were all waiting for, One Right Now by Post Malone and The Weeknd at number 6. Right now, the radio has thrown a lot of weight behind this in order to support some strong sales, but the streaming looks a little flaky, which might not be a good sign for this longer term. At least got over Fancy Like by Walker Hayes at number 7, where somehow people are still buying this, even as it seems like the radio has yanked a lot of support, and yet that leads to our next new top 10 debut, Smokin Out The Window by Silk Sonic at number 8. Now, I'm curious to see how well this might perform. It's going to get an album boost next week in order to help out with the sales, and the streaming's already pretty strong, but it looks like radio is kind of slow to get on board with this one, and that could be troublesome if the traction doesn't really ramp up. Finally, to round things out, we got Need to Know by Doja Cat at number 9, where streaming took a hit and radio seems to be slowing down, and Heat Waves by Glass Animals at number 10, which doesn't look like it's going to be going anywhere courtesy of the radio, even as the streaming is finally flagging a little bit. But you know, since it is an album bomb week, we got a pretty robust list of losers and dropouts. Most of the latter case, they are weaker songs that are below the top 50, handily being swept away, but we did get a few larger cuts like Come Through by Her featuring Chris Brown, Whole Lot of Money by Bia and Nicki Minaj, My Boy by LV Shane, Waukesha by Moneybagg Yo, and Love Again by Dua Lipa. Man, that song got robbed in the States. But you know, a solid third of the Hot 100 this week are losers, primarily lower down in the Hot 100. So working our way from the top down, Traitor by Olivia Rodrigo at 34, Who Wants Smoke by Nardo Wick featuring G Herbo, Lil Durk, and 21 Savage at 35, Montero, Call Me By Your Name by Lil Nas X at 42, it's on its way out. And then we got My Universe by Coldplay and BTS at 43, Wild Side by Normani and Cardi B at 53, and Gaialis by Capella Gray 58. Then we got Sharing Locations by Meek Mill featuring Lil Baby and Lil Durk at 62, I Was on a Boat That Day by Old Dominion at 64, Fair Trade by Drake featuring Travis Scott at 66, Knowing You by Kenny Chesney at 67, Take My Breath by The Weeknd at 70, and Moth to a Flame by Swedish House Mafia and The Weeknd at 71. That song's not catching fire at all. Then we got A-OK by Ty Verdes at 72, Bubbly by Young Thug featuring Travis Scott and Drake at 74, and then a trio of country songs leaving with Tequila Little Time by John Party at 78, Memory I Don't Mess With by Lee Brice at 79, and Till You Can't by Cody Johnson at 82. Next, there's Woman by Doja Cat at 83, Overpass Graffiti by Ed Sheeran at 85, losing big off the debut, Big Energy by Lotto, losing all its gains at 86, Hurricane and Praise God by Kanye West at 87 and 96 respectively, and Cold Beer Calling My Name by Jameson Rogers and Luke Combs at 88. And finally, to end all this off, Baddest by Young Bleu, Chris Brown, and 2 Chainz at 90, Jungaste We Sufri from Eslabon Armando and Danny Lux at 91, For Tonight by Giveon at 92, Maybach by 42 Doug and Future at 93, Too Easy by Gunna and Future at 94, Vulvi by Aventura and Bad Bunny at 95, Poke It Out by Wale and J. Cole at 98, Half of My Hometown by Kelsey Ballerini and Kenny Chesney at 99, and 2055 by Sleepy Hollow at 100. Now, to be expected, we didn't get any gains this week. Hell, the only return we got was from Summer Walker's album bomb was X for a Reason with JT at 33. But since my album bomb rules are in effect, in other words, I'll be covering the songs that placed in the top 40 or wound up as our best or worst of the week, the songs that fall out of that category are as follows. Dat Right Here with the Neptunes at 77, good groove on that song though. Broken Promises at 76, Screwin with Omarion at 73, Session 33 at 68, Closure at 60, Switch an N-Word Out at 59, Fourth Baby Mama at 56, Circus at 54, Insane at 52, You Don't Know Me at 50, Constant Bullshit at 49, Toxic with Lil Durk at 45, Reciprocate at 44, and Throw It Away at 41. Alright, now on to our still pretty hefty list of new arrivals, starting with number 97, Super Gremlin by Kodak Black.
Remember when we were jacking cars? Now it's not safe for you. You switch like a pussy little bit.
So context for this, apparently Kodak Black's got a crew. This is a solo joint to drive up some hype for that crew's upcoming mixtape. Frankly, I'm shocked there's an audience that still cares enough to seek this out, mostly because it kinda sucks. Yeah, the chipmunk sample riding the hook is not my thing, but it becomes very obvious it feels like a leftover Lil Baby beat, and Kodak has nowhere close to the melodic chops in order to ride this hook effectively. Granted, his flow is also messy, his bars barely rhyme and connect, his gunplay references are stale, there are multiple poop references, he brags about buying and taking fake drugs, which is really stupid, and by the end of his second verse he's dropping the R word, and frankly I'm done with this. Honestly, even trap should be moving on from Kodak Black at this point. Next, number 89, Jumpin by Enely Choppa featuring Polo G.
Junk, add to the combo if it's about money. Used to be bumming, turn nothing to something. I got my bank account jump.
I'm still surprised that Enely Choppa finds ways to get back on the Hot 100, more because it always seems like his career is kind of precarious, but he was able to get the Polo G feature here, similar to getting Roddy Ricch, so maybe he's got really good connections, I don't know. Anyway, this song sucks too. A bleary melody behind all the trap words and money machine sound effects as Enely Choppa stutters through flexing on his hook with absolutely zero energy, which only barely picks up on his one verse, where he has lines such as reaping the benefits like he an immigrant, and play with the cash and I'm on your ass like the pockets on the back of your pants. But okay, fine, Enely Choppa's music has been pretty stupid before. Polo G could drop a guest verse and really save this, and oh my god, he doesn't even sound like he cares. He doesn't even sound like he bothered to get on beat at all, where him crooning his gunplay feels shockingly off. Seriously, was he planning to rap on a different song or something? Was this verse intended for something else? Honestly, this is just incompetent all the way down. Not a fan of this. Let's move on. Number 81, Slow Down Summer by Thomas Rhett. I guess Thomas Rhett is done working singles from that last album, so here we get a very piano-driven pop country song complete with the snap beat and the trap progression on a mix that'll just compress everything into the most fizzy and overmixed slurry I've heard in a while, complete with some flagrantly synthetic auto-tune on all the backing vocals. I mean, I'm not that surprised he wasn't sticking with the neo-traditional pivot on that last project, but to go straight back into the cheapest appropriation of modern pop trap that already feels dated is kinda shocking. Yeah, the strings don't sound bad when you can hear them fighting out of the mix, and I don't mind the lyrical sentiment of trying to preserve warm weather, but this was dropped in early November. Feels a little bit late for that sort of window for this song, and any added melancholy of a potentially lost relationship just does not materialize or feel all that convincing. Honestly, it just sounds really flimsy, and absolutely a backslide for Thomas Rhett. So no, this isn't any good either. Next up, number 80, Sad Girls Love Money by Amaarae and Moliy featuring Kali Uchis.
fuck out of my way, I'm gonna get paid, yeah. I'm gonna get paid, yeah. Just give me my mood, la la la.
Okay, not really surprised this went viral. I actually covered the Amaarae album last year and On the Pulse. Knew it wasn't really for me, given a lot of the vocals and the flighty subject matter, and while this wasn't one of the songs I liked from the project, getting Kali Uchis for the remix makes a lot of sense. Granted, my larger issues were always more with Molly's delivery, in comparison with Amaare's similar but slightly more reserved voice, but when you add in Kali Uchis' huskier tone, a more robust verse, better percussion, she's kinda perfect for the misty, late-night atmosphere behind all the flexing. Still doesn't really add up into much more when it comes to the content, but it feels a little bit more grounded and moody. There's more to like here, and Kali Uchis does nail her verse. It's still not all the way there, but I get where and how this would work in a pop context, so yeah, fine enough. Number 48, Unloyal by Summer Walker and Ari Lennox.
I guess I'm unloyal, baby. We'll call it what you want.
So this is an interesting quandary. Of the Summer Walker songs, this might be one of the most openly antagonistic on the album, where they diss their partners, where they're sick of being ignored and mistreated, and if that means they're not going to be loyal, so be it. Because it's not like they don't have the money or clout to be on their own, and the guy is just trash anyways. The Kevin Samuels reference from Ari Lennox, absolute gold. So yeah, kind of a flagrant song, even by some R&B standards. And I actually think it's the best on the album by a considerable margin. Now, a lot of that you can put down to the production. The hollow tapping groove playing off the wheedling guitars, the sinuous bass playing off the percussion. And even if I think that Summer Walker is a somewhat limited vocalist who pales in comparison with Ari Lennox, that sax solo does a lot in order to make up the difference, especially splashing off the organ. So yeah, you know what? I'll say it. This is a good song. I'll take it. Number 26, Mafia by Travis Scott. I'm going to avoid talking about the Astroworld incident in this episode, not because I don't have opinions on it or it hasn't been discussed to death, but it's a more layered and complicated subject that frankly has me astounded that Travis Scott still tried to push and promote the 2 singles he dropped here. Now this one's got J. Cole uncredited on the hook, a little bit surprised it didn't chart higher as a result, but beyond that, wow, this is flimsy at best. Dreary piano, stale trap percussion, Travis's flow reminding me way more than it should of Future, and considering that most of it is probably directed at his partner, the flexing just feels painfully underweight and just kind of forgettable. Maybe it's because it's so obviously a B-side it didn't do as well, but I'm gonna forget this exists in record time. Also not a good sign. Number 25, Bitter by Summer Walker and Cardi B.
Mad at the fact he ain't with you. Mad at the fact that it's me.
Okay, so skipping over the majority of the Summer Walker album bomb, I'm gonna review it on my main channel, relax. It leaves us with 2 tracks very early on the project, with this as the opener. Also kind of a misnomer about Cardi B being on the song. She really just delivers a monologue at the very end where she tells Summer Walker to fuck those gossipy drama bitches. Kind of flies in the face of the majority of the album ahead, but honestly, I'm just not sure the song really works in Summer Walker's favor here either. The majority of it focuses on dissing some bitter woman who isn't as wealthy, not as independent, a messy woman whose kids are with her mom, but she still wants all the child support, and she can't even take a proper Instagram photo, even if she's gonna be in your business on the Shade Room. But not only is the following album just as messy and melodramatic, but midway through the first verse, Summer Walker is calling out her producer and ex-boyfriend London on the Track for potentially screwing this other woman, and something gives me the impression that she's not all that interested in keeping the mess that quiet. That's how it ends up on the Shade Room in the first place. And again, London's her ex now, so if he did go to this bitter woman, she got what she wanted. And when you couple it with some clumsily produced vocals with no consistent fidelity, shambling percussion that eventually breaks into a stock trap groove, and the obvious vibe of trying to rip off Jhené Aiko, yeah, I reckon I know where the bitterness really is. Just saying. Number 13, No Love by Summer Walker and SZA.
All I wanna do is
Okay, maybe it's just me, but it seems like a really stupid idea for Summer Walker to recruit considerably stronger women in her own lane for this album. Did it once with Ari Lennox, and it's just as obvious with SZA here, especially when SZA's verse has a more robust flow and plays into the vibe a little bit more decisively, which is the two of them throwing up the middle finger to their ex, and if they were to come back into their lives, all they want to do is just fuck these exes and move on, get drunk and just discard them. Which from SZA, okay, I'd buy it, but Summer Walker, the reason why London might be calling you is because he's a producer and songwriter with whom you've worked extensively, including on this album, and you have a child together, and you've also called him out by name multiple times on this album, and made it clear that you've got a lot of lingering feelings. I mean, Summer Walker's just a lot less convincing, and the production once again does them few favors. The vocal mixing feels really thin, where they're goddamn near peaking in the mix, and while the bass line is good, it doesn't obscure how the groove feels weirdly leaden behind all the desaturated pianos and the clunky flow of the hook. Again, I know I'm not the target audience for this, but I've also heard this done a lot better, so it's not bad, not great either. Next up, number 11, Escape Plan by Travis Scott.
That shit was a waste, man, but wait, I stopped the facing, cause shit just started racing, but wait, it opened gates, and it should just stop parading, oh lady.
Am I the only one getting a Drake vibe off this? I'm sorry, the Travis Scott music that I remember liking a lot more had a way more effective atmosphere than this, whereas the wheedling, uneasy melody lurks behind the stock trap percussion, and we get little more than bargain barrel flexing. Yeah, the tempo's a little bit quicker, and the bars string together a bit more effectively, but for as lavish as all the flexing might be, it doesn't translate into the music being remotely more interesting. Again, if this is setting up some sort of dystopia mixtape, the only one that it's really exposing is extreme wealth inequality, and how the uber-rich can be just as boring as tar, just like anyone else. In other words, I'm going to forget this too. Next, number 8, Smokin Out The Window by Silk Sonic. Finally, a song that's absolutely fantastic that I've already referenced in my review of the album, but one that indicates a different sort of high-wire act that Silk Sonic are attempting. While their previous songs were a lot more lightweight and playful and openly looking for sex, this is more of a breakup song where our hapless gentlemen feel like they've been used in this relationship. They gotta go get high and relax somewhere else before they have to cut this girl loose back onto the streets, framing it more as setting her free. Yeah, that can be a really dicey vibe to sell, but thankfully you got two of the best in the industry who are selling it, with a twinkling R&B groove with some great splashes of horns that ramp up the groove for the second half of the hook really nicely, Anderson .Paak playing into the melodrama for completely ridiculous effect, and Bruno Mars playing up the histrionics to the point where he actually sounds legit heartbroken by ending all of this, even if again it's probably for all the right reasons, especially with how far he pushes his falsetto on that final hook. It's legit impressive. It's the sort of song that could easily play for glorious cheese, but could also swivel right around and just work like a charm. So again, fantastic song, fantastic album that I can only hope lands some real impact on the charts next week. We'll have to see. And finally, number 6, One Right Now by Post Malone and The Weeknd.
I got one coming up, one right now. One right now.
Am I the only one seeing a whiff of desperation around the collab here? Not from The Weeknd, his career is still rock solid and all over the charts, but Post Malone seems to have a rough time getting any sort of traction going in recent months, and thus going for that big name collab on that next album, I don't know, I saw what happened to Motley Crue, and this hasn't seen the swell of attention I was expecting, not the same groundswell. And it's kind of interesting that it's also a flagrantly retro breakup duet, this one pulling from some sharper early 80s synth pop, but it's considerably less likable, even if I think the coursing low-end groove is actually pretty solid. Partially because amidst the warping waves of synth and auto-tune, I'm not remotely convinced that The Weeknd or Post Malone have good chemistry with each other, but also because they come across as a lot more dickish on this song, mostly because the power dynamic feels so off. With Silk Sonic, both the guys were kinda hapless, they were over their heads, whereas both men here have to be in constant control, and they're borderline imperious Circus as they brag about how much lifestyle they bought these women and how she's just a stain on their legacy. And hell, they already have another girl in on the way. In the former case, there was a sense of stakes and some emotional drama, whereas this is just sour and doesn't match well with the sort of groove. So I gotta say it, Post Malone might be 0 for 2 here, because I didn't care for this at all. And that was our week. Wasn't very good, if you can't tell, but at least the best and the worst, they followed pretty easily. And to my amazement, Summer Walker actually dodged the worst of the week here, with that going to Super Gremlin by Kodak Black, with a dishonorable mention going to Jumpin by NLE Choppa and Polo G. And honestly, both these songs really suck, and they can at any moment swap them around. Now for our best of the week, Unloyal by Summer Walker and Ari Lennox, that's getting the honorable mention behind Smokin Out The Window by Silk Sonic as the easy best. But the story next week will be, well, the rest of that album likely impacting the Hot 100, alongside Taylor Swift's reissue of Rhett. It's gonna be kinda wild up in here. I'm expecting a bigger album bomb. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.